Well, now it's time for In Business, and this week, a question. Remember the internet? They said electronic commerce would revolutionise business. Then it crashed to earth. But some companies are still pinning high hopes on the internet revolution. Peter Day reports.
At the height of the extraordinary dot-com bubble, there was no doubt about it. The internet was going to change every single thing about business in the 21st century. 3 years later, the dreams lie in ruins, with billions of pounds and dollars and marks vaporized on illusory promises and busted ambition. Hey-ho for the new economy. But hang on a minute. Somewhere in the ruins there are still signs of life. As a new global communications medium, the internet is still powering ahead. For many users, life is unthinkable without it. And amid the wreckage of pet food delivery companies and high fashion online, a few rare people are still convinced that the internet can be a powerful business tool, one that can still transform the way they work.
The network is unstoppable. Somebody at some point is going to cave in and do it, and when they do that, that marketplace will be transformed.
When you are shaking up an industry like we are now, I think it's not that surprising that the existing industry players will be somewhat distressed and try to stop you. To go from nothing, two people sitting in a room 2.5 years ago, to the third biggest betting company in the UK with no large venture capital backing, I think is quite remarkable, and I think it shows the power of the internet.
This programme listens to some of the electronic commerce companies who are still convinced they've got the key to survival, and ask them about the lessons to be learned from the great internet boom and bust so far. First, to a man who's been tracking the growth of electronic commerce since almost before it started. James Roper is Chief Executive of the Interactive Media and Retail Group. It represents almost all the participants in this new business. Despite the dot-com bust, James Roper says internet shopping certainly has not gone away.
We're seeing faster growth now of internet shopping than we ever have before. We're expecting £1 billion a month online shopping sales in the UK November and December this year. That's 4% of all retail. You know, what customers want, and they always have wanted the same thing, is more choice, more convenience, better prices. That is what is facilitated by the internet. It is unstoppable and will come along. You can kink-canute it if you want, but this thing will wash through.
Yes, but the experience of the bubble bursting, the burnt fingers, means that it's jolly difficult to persuade people to put their money into the dot-com revolution, if it is a revolution, in the way that they would have done 3 years ago. Therefore, you have to have a much sounder business plan than you dreamed of having 3 years ago.
I don't argue with what you say, but I see it in a different way. We saw a herd mentality where a lot of very intelligent people did a lot of very stupid things, and it seems to me they're just continuing more of the same. They all invested at the time when the market was high and they paid too much for things that weren't worth what they paid for them. Now when the market is low, and we see around us all sorts of opportunities and nobody investing in it at all. Which is more stupid? They're both stupid as far as I can see.
James Roper of the trade body, the Interactive Media and Retail Group, who says that, remarkably, e-commerce has a bigger share of total retailing here in Britain than in the United States. When it started, electronic commerce was touted as the channel that would change everything. Now the initial frenzy is over, what have we learnt? Lycos is one of those things called a portal, helping its users to find what they want on the huge new Internet Library and Bulletin Board. Backed by the German international media giant Bertelsmann, Lycos had huge ambitions to attract users and advertising. Well, after a much publicised change of top management, Bertelsmann itself is now in retreat from many of its Internet-based new ventures. But Lycos is still convinced its plan can work. During the bubble years, everyone seemed sure that advertising would pay for everything on the internet. I asked Alex Kovacs, the managing director of Lycos UK, how has that been modified now?
We went through a period of irrational exuberance, certainly, when people felt everybody could make money out of advertising on the internet and the business models weren't fully thought through. We then have been through a period of what I call irrational negativity, where we decide that advertising is hopeless and that no one can actually make money out of advertising and that we almost make it out of premium products. I mean, neither is correct. The reality is that advertising will be on the net. There will be players who will become media properties and will be profitable off advertising.
Alex Kovacs from Lycos UK. Now to an internet business which has attracted attention from all over the world because it was quite deliberately not revolutionary. Here we are in a big supermarket in North London where the service is self-service and one of the main skills is still finding the quickest checkout queue. But here's a big supermarket trolley with 6 big green baskets stacked up on it and a computer screen stuck on the front. This is the technology revolution at the heart of Tesco.com. The customers may go shopping on the internet, but the orders they generate are picked by human pickers inside this familiar Tesco store.
So we're in aisle 13, crisp beers and snacks. The item which we'll want to pick, it tells you by module where you're going. So you walk along and say you're going 1, 2, 3, 4 modules along. It will then tell you which shelf it's on, running from the top. You take the scanning item out, it says that is the right item. You put it into the tray, and then it tells you where the next item is, and it's normally a couple of shelves away. You scan the Heineken in the tray for that customer, and then away you go.
And when the orders are picked, they're carted through to the vans for delivery to an area that's a 25-minute radius of the local store, offering online shoppers a 2-hour window during which to expect the goods. The service sells groceries at shop prices, including special offers, but there's an extra £5 delivery charge. Tesco.com is now in its 6th year, and it's already a business turning over £400 million a year. Not enormous to a high street giant, but significant, and based on only slightly modifying existing stores. John Browett, behind the trolley for that demo, is chief executive of Tesco.com.
What we worked out very early on, that in order to make the delivery economics work, you had to do it from a local store. Now, the tricky bit was that you then had to create a process which worked inside a busy store environment, and that was the technological breakthrough. It wasn't just using the internet to do the order taking, it was actually using the internet to run the process in the store. And so we actually have a paperless picking system which actually works in store. That was really the thing which made it work.
It actually works, really works. People say that, for example, you don't get all the things you've ordered from Tesco. You get substitutes because they're picked from the shelves of a store which runs out of things during the day.
Well, that's true, but there are 2 types of substitutes you can get. The first are near substitutes. So if I send you packaged cauliflower rather than loose cauliflower, that is actually not really a substitute as far as the customer is concerned. There are genuine substitutes in terms that occasionally we do run out of items, but it's actually a very small proportion of overall shop. And in those cases, we actually ask the customers, in general terms, to tell us how they would like us to actually substitute. And it's no different in a warehouse, by the way. There's a great myth that in a warehouse you get fantastic accuracy, and it's very hard to do. We looked at all the US players, and there were 12 people in America who tried to do it out of warehouses, and we actually have better availability than those people did in the States.
Now, while this was being set up at Tesco, all over the world, other people were having brand new economy.com ideas about how to deliver everything from pet food to books to whatever it was. Putting your sort of model under scrutiny or putting a question mark over it. You were doing the same old thing with a bit of an extension.
Well, I remember when I launched the business to the city, we formed Tesco.com and we did this presentation, and we had a huge number of analysts come to see us. I mean, a couple of hundred people. I mean, it's a small business, very small turnover at that stage. Somebody who was standing at the back said, well, I suppose because it's Tesco, we have to believe them that it's the right way to do it. And it was so sceptical, you couldn't believe it. Lots of people told us we were absolutely crazy to do what we did.
And then when that business, I remember when it got to £100 million turnover, and people were still kind of discovering it. Oh, this isn't one of the ones we thought about. This is one of those that got under the fence.
I mean, I'll give you a better example than that. I once told one of the journalists, of course, you know we're running the largest e-commerce business in Europe. And the guy said, no, you're not. I said, well, who's got more turnover than I have? And it was just almost disbelief that this actually what at the surface looks prosaically simple is actually a very good model for doing it.
And you say it makes money even though there are staff to pay for picking off the shelves, and then you've got the delivery costs as well, and the charges are £5 for the service.
Yes, that's right. And the reason for that is that, again, as I come back to it, when we designed the process, we designed in it to actually hit those numbers. I mean, it was absolutely a very carefully designed thing to do. In fact, you will find this almost difficult to believe, but the pick rate, the speed at which they assemble shopping, is faster than any of the US warehouses I saw.
John Bryant of Tesco.com, a model now being rolled out in Korea and the USA. As he said, the internet grocery companies that got so much attention during the bubble were the ones that said, let's do it from scratch. Webvan in the United States spent its way through $800 million of investment building mighty warehouses from scratch and a huge new distribution network. Then Webvan went bust. So it's all the more remarkable when you drive into the industrial park that used to be the airport at Hatfield in Hertfordshire, a historic site for British industry because it's where the pioneering but much troubled Comet airliner made its maiden flight from in the 1950s. Rearing up in front of you is the most enormous shed. This is the vast warehouse for a new grocery shopping service called Ocado, a start-up internet shopping company which is in partnership with Waitrose, the supermarket division of the John Lewis organisation. Ocado is doing what Webvan tried and failed to do, home delivery across quite a big area in and around London, with the orders picked and fulfilled not from existing local stores, but from this giant, specially built central warehouse.
We've raised over £100 million since the internet bubble burst. We were very, very clear on day one that we needed a business that we could make money from and that our partners and investors and shareholders could make money from.
The youthful co-founder and Ocado Chief Financial Officer Jason Gissing and the Chief Executive Tim Steiner showed me round this extraordinary space. Both were investment bankers when Tim thought up the idea that has grown into Ocado.
We're in Hatfield in Hertfordshire, about 25 miles north of London. We're standing inside Ocado's first main food facility in the UK. It's a 300,000 square foot building. It's about the size of 8 football pitches inside. We've got a 25-acre plot of land here.
It's 5 stories high.
It's about 18 metres high. We've got 4 stories in here, yes, that's right. The idea here is to use automation to improve efficiencies and take out costs in the business, but nothing that is being done in here is untried or untested. It is all technology that's been taken from existing industries, whether it's car manufacturing or other industries across Europe, and we've just put them together in a creative way to try and do something that's never been done before successfully.
But essentially what you're doing here is something that rivals to you do by sending chaps round and chapesses round supermarket shelves to pick the stuff off the shelves themselves. And you've got all this very elaborate, very expensive equipment doing it. It's just started up there.
The equipment we're looking at the moment is actually just taking the stock to the shelves. Effectively, the equivalent of stocking the shelves of a supermarket. It's driving efficiency, so that's the total amount of stock that we can put away. It gives us scale and also allows us to do it, as you say, with minimum labour. And very importantly, for home-delivered shopping, it allows us to do it with exceptional accuracy.
My question mark, though, is, isn't this far too elaborate for the rather simple job of grocery delivery?
It may look like miles and miles of conveyor belt. It may look like an enormous amount of upfront capital investment. But the grocery market is a massive market. It's worth over £100 billion a year in this country, and a large proportion of that, 10-15%, will go online. This is a significant market, and this facility at scale will be able to do the turnover of 20 supermarkets.
This is such a far cry from the caricature of the .com, an idea which, if you put .com at the end of it, is bound to work, isn't it? This is physical. This is huge.
This is very physical because what we're planning to do here is deliver your shopping needs for you 52 weeks a year, delivering you 60 to 70 different items that is frozen, that's arriving to you at minus 25 degrees centigrade for your ice cream. It's a complicated exercise. We've invested capital to ensure we get excellent customer service and at the same time deliver a great proposition.
But your rivals think they can do this from a supermarket, and they're up and running. They've been doing it for some years now.
Well, our rivals are doing an excellent job, but our customers are telling us we're doing a significantly better job. We have way less substitutions. Our average substitution rate is well under 2%.
So for all the internet experience and the wonders of cyberspace, it's the physical doing it reliably, getting it to the door that really counts.
Absolutely, that's what counts, that's what we've had to build. The internet for us is just a way of taking orders from customers. It could have been a telephone, it could have been a fax, it could have been the customer coming and ordering on our doorstep.
And Tim Steiner and Jason Gissing of Ocado are promising a competitive 1-hour delivery window, despite the elaborate treks their vans will be making to get to you across the country. One other thing makes Ocado's business plan distinctive. Waitrose is a small supermarket chain with only 136 stores covering only part of Britain. Even these expensive warehouses are far cheaper than building new stores in the high street or the shopping centre. John Lewis has a big financial stake in Ocado, some £46 million. If it works, it could be a cheap way of doubling Waitrose turnover by delivering to places the stores simply cannot reach, without investing in the several billions it would take to reach customers in a non-internet way. Now, a quite different approach to business and a fascinating tale. Tom Hadfield was only 12 when, in 1995, he thought up the idea of a site posting football match scores on the internet. SoccerNet rapidly became one of the most popular sites in Europe, backed by the Daily Mail Group and eventually sold to Walt Disney. Tom's father, Greg Hadfield, a veteran journalist and education correspondent, he'd been SoccerNet's full-time editor, then raised £700,000 from private investors to launch SchoolsNet, another internet site, this time aimed at teachers.
I'm married to a teacher. I've got 2 kids who were at school. I wanted to do something where my wife didn't say, "What does your husband do for a living?" He puts up live football scores on a computer. I wanted to do something a bit more meaningful with this fantastic medium that I'd bumped into. I'd come from newsprint, and suddenly I'd come into this really exciting environment of the internet and the web.
So what happened? You took the money from Sportsnet and you thought about what you could do, and you came up with another idea that was on the internet. Meanwhile, of course, the dot-com bubble was bursting, wasn't it?
It wasn't really, to be honest. Having been a lone voices in the wilderness in 1995, where just no one had heard of the internet, having moved through 97, 98, we were coming into what was boiling up to be the hype. So I was fundraising for our new venture in late 98, early 99. It was still a father and son act. We were still based in our home in Brighton.
Son was a bit older.
A bit older.
Father was a bit older.
And wiser, one hopes. And we had a certain amount of track record that was an advantage. And I believe we actually had a compelling business case as well.
Which was a internet site about schools for teachers.
It's SchoolsNet, which is aimed at pupils, parents and teachers. We address the 3 strands of the audience, parents, pupils and teachers, because that is what education is about. No one of those single audiences can exist in isolation, and nor would you actually get teachers coming to the site in such numbers if all there was were jobs. That's why we give them free curriculum content as tools to do their jobs. We do that for free at the moment. That's how we get such a huge audience. Similarly, with pupils using the site, they will feed that back to their teachers and tell their teachers to use SchoolsNet for the curriculum content maybe in the first instance, but whilst they're using the site for that, they will browse across into the jobs.
And you expect school supplies to be another leg of the revenue part of your business plan?
We had an experiment with the SchoolsNet shop last year where we very quickly got the best part of 1,000 schools register for accounts in the SchoolsNet shop. We surveyed school bursars and head teachers, and there's no doubt there is a demand and a hunger and an expectation that they will be buying significant amounts of school supplies online in the very near future. The reality is that the future is very slow in coming. I expected it to come much more quickly in 1999, 2000. It is clear that the evolution of society and how it interacts with the internet and how it uses the online world is going to happen, but one has to survive for the 3, 4, 5 years during which time that revolution takes place.
Is going to happen. That's not just you whistling in the dark, as so many other people whistled so loudly in the build-up to the bubble and so ridiculously when the bubble burst.
What was interesting was that from being a voice in the wilderness in 95, 96, the noise and the hype got so great in 99, 2000 that it was very difficult for anyone to differentiate the sensible, intelligent voices from the people who weren't riding the bandwagon so much as just seeing a main chance where they could be shooting stars and make a bit of money very quickly.
What's it like now from the investment point of view? Terrible, isn't it?
I think it's turned around in the sense that are being deprived of the funding they need simply because they've just turned their backs and had their fingers and their wallets so badly burned that they're now making even bigger mistakes.
Greg Hadfield, learning the lessons, you might say, of SchoolsNet. Remember how everyone said the internet was going to redefine the way things are done? Well, finally, here's a business which appears to be doing precisely that.
Betfair.
So William Wallace is currently trading at 4.4 to back, 4.6 to lay. Muharrib Lady, 1.9 to back, 1.92 to lay.
32,060.
The business is betting. The company is Betfair, and it's not a bookie but an internet betting exchange. That's the telephone helpline. Betfair posts up the riders and runners, and Betfair members go online to place bets between each other without the intervention of the bookie. Betfair was co-founded 2 years ago by Andrew Black, an entrepreneur with a background in finance and computer software. As he told me, it's growing very rapidly indeed, and the conventional betting industry doesn't like Betfair one little bit.
I would say we're probably the most successful .com story in the UK, possibly Europe. I don't know if that's overstating it, but we're currently doing about £60 million of bets a week. And on pure turnover, I don't think there's another .com that started in Europe that gets anywhere close to us.
And that makes you the same size as the third biggest bookie.
It does. We think we are the third biggest bookie now, and that's including all the shops and everything.
Except you're not a bookie, of course.
We do actually have a bookmaker's licence, so strictly speaking, we are a bookmaker, but we don't take any risk. We're just purely an intermediary.
How do you make money out of it?
We charge commission on winning bets, so if you win a certain amount of money, we take a percentage of that.
And the software can do that?
Yeah, the whole thing happens automatically. We just have to put in the result of whatever it was, and it just takes all the money out, moves it between different accounts, and takes off commission and puts it into our account.
And bad debts?
We have had a few bad debts, but they are very, very rare. I mean, because people have to put their money in beforehand.
What's in it for the punter?
Well, the punter should hopefully get better prices, because if you go to a bookmaker, he will give you his price, and there will be about sort of 12% built into that.
For overheads and salaries and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, if I want to back Arsenal, I think they're going to win the match tomorrow, and I can find somebody who doesn't think they're going to win the match tomorrow, then the two of us can have a bet without locking in 12%, without one of us being forced to give a price, because we actually have opposing views. It's kind of a natural way to do it.
And the essential thing that the internet does is to add pricing to absolutely everything that goes on there, instant pricing and mass distribution straight away.
Yes, I mean, the distribution is the big thing. So you can go to any football match, any race, you can see what's going on, you can see the prices changing in front of your eyes. If it's a horse race that's about to go off, every second you'll see 7 or 8 prices on the screen changing and dotting around, and amounts of money moving about. So it's very, very electric, very vibrant. I think you do get a feel that you're playing on something that is happening and very, very active. I think there's some sort of adrenaline and excitement in that.
Now, everybody said a few years ago that the internet was a disruptive technology, was going to transform the way everybody did everything in business. You're disrupting the way people lay bets and take bets, aren't you? The bookies.
Yes, it would certainly be true to say the big bookmakers aren't particularly happy with us. Obviously, we've invaded their space. We've built up a very big business very quickly, and it's still growing quite fast, and obviously this is going to be quite a big concern for them. Also, we're doing things in a very, very different way, so it makes it very difficult for them to compete. I think that they are suffering effectively because we found a better way of doing it. We found a more efficient way of doing it. An internet exchange is, to my mind, a far better way of doing these things, and it makes it very hard for them to compete.
So they say that the activities you encourage, if not you yourselves, are breaking the law, because it's against the law to lay a bet, to take a bet, without a licence.
We certainly don't believe that's true, and I very strongly believe that that's incorrect. Although it has been argued that that's the case, that some of our users are breaking the law, or we are breaking the law by allowing them to do so. I mean, the definition of a bookmaker is somebody who is in the business of receiving or negotiating bets. In my view, everyone who places a bet on Betfair, we are receiving that bet. They put the bets through to us. We're the ones who are receiving it. There's no negotiation that goes on, so our users are not bookmakers. Others are arguing that our users are bookmakers. But the law as it stands, as I see it anyway, that is definitely not true. I mean, I think a bookmaker is somebody who solicits bets from the general public, which our users do not do. I mean, they are all anonymous. But there is some debate on that, but I'm quite confident in our position.
But you're being harassed a lot, constantly challenged.
We are. When you are shaking up an industry like we are now, I think it's not that surprising that the existing industry players will be somewhat distressed and try to stop you.
How big can this get? Some people are always going to be wary of it, the occasional punter, for example.
Yes, I think some people will never embrace it because it's a little bit more complex. Your occasional punter would probably never get round to it because there's a certain amount of learning he'd have to go through in order to do it. A lot of people like to do their accumulators, your sort of Yankees and Super Yankees, that sort of thing, and you can't really do those on an exchange. And the best way to do it is through the net. A betting shop has got a lot of attractive reasons for going there. You meet up with other people, it's very social, you get to see various things on the screens there, so on and so forth. So I don't think it'll ever completely take over, but I think it can get a lot bigger than it is at the moment, and it can get a lot more international, I think.
Lessons for other internet businesses from this?
I think you've got to go out and take your chances, as I said.
A lot of people did, and they were preposterous chances they were taking. Burn rate was the only significant thing about the company. Eye-catching idea and a dot and a com, and that was it.
Yes, I mean, that's definitely true. I think there was a real sense of people trying to jump on the bandwagon. When I started out, I hadn't gone out looking for an internet idea. I hadn't thought, right, I want to exploit the internet, jump on this bandwagon and come up with an idea. I'd had an idea, and then I thought, oh, this would work on the internet, that would be good. So I've been thinking about this for a number of years, and it was very mature. When we started up, there were all sorts of people starting up businesses, and you just got the feeling that everyone was trying to jump on this crazy bandwagon because they thought they couldn't lose. And they were just coming up with some very, very simple ideas that really weren't very clever. And it was no surprise to me that so many of them got their fingers burnt. A totally crazy time. But if you have got an idea that's genuinely good, and you have thought it through properly, then I still think, the opportunity is probably there for somebody to go out and create a very, very good business on the internet.
You mentioned something that is striking, and that is the ease of transfer at the end from one pot of money to another pot of money, somebody's account to another person's account. No physical delivery attached to the internet experience.
For us, that's a huge win. I mean, it makes life so much easier. I mean, I have friends in other sort of .com type companies who will have to deliver their goods, and it makes an enormous difference to the margins, it makes an enormous difference to the way that you run the business, to the sorts of offices that you have to keep. I think we've got something close to the perfect model in that sense, because we can run the whole business from these offices, and we've got no costs moving things around or anything like that.
A lot of people have pulled out, are pulling out of the internet, writing it off as a waste of time. You don't, obviously.
I think there was an awful lot of websites out there that have an awful lot of money put into them that should never have come about. That doesn't mean that the internet is not going to be a huge success. It doesn't mean that it isn't going to be a very, very big medium for business in the future. It's just that it all moved a bit fast. We have found one particularly successful model that does work incredibly well over the internet, and we've made a very, very successful business out of that in virtually no time at all. To go from nothing, two people sitting in a room 2.5 years ago, to the third biggest betting company in the UK with no large venture capital backing, I think is quite remarkable, and I think it shows the power of the internet, much more so than what we've achieved. It's the power of the internet, and that power is there to be harnessed by anyone.
Andrew Black of Betfair, shaking up betting by using the internet. Despite the boom, despite the bust, how many other things will the internet shake up? Don't know yet, but we'll keep you posted.
Peter Day, the editor of In Business, is Stephen Chilcott.